We're good.
Hello again, everyone. I am Chris Scherer, and this is the Citizen Sports Weekly for Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. Robert Harding is with us. Justin Ritzel on assignment, covering a good high school game, hopefully. And we have a special guest today. Paul Schwartz of the New York Post, the beat writer covering the New York Giants, is joining us. We're lucky to have him. We're very fortunate to have him, and it's great to have him. So, Paul, I just want to say thanks again for joining us and welcome. And we'll get right to it. So, the Giants offseason, the second year going into the Joe Judge, administration here, so to speak. What were your thoughts about their offseason, how they improved themselves for 2021?
So hold on a second, Chris. Why you didn't tell your watchers and listeners why you have me on?
Well, you're an Albany grad.
That's our connection, right?
Right. We're both Albany.
We're Great Danes.
We're both Great Danes.
We're Great Danes, and that's why I'm on. I don't do this for anybody. You know what I mean?
Well,
some guy calls me up and says, I'm a Dolphin fan. Can you come on my upstate New York, show? I'm like, I don't know about that, but Great Danes, we do everything for each other, right?
That's right. And one thing I wanted to mention to you, Paul, is I noticed your love for Albany on Twitter. You're always tweeting in response to different tweets from the athletic department and the Alumni Association. And I think that's great. It's one of those things. You don't forget where you came from. You don't forget where you got your start. And you were sports editor of the Albany Student Press at one time, right?
Yeah, sure.
As was I. And it's a great experience. We had, obviously we were not there at the same time, but both our experiences were, I think, major reasons why we got into sports journalism and period. And we just really have that connection with Albany, and it is a special place, and it was a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, well, I work with a lot of people, obviously in the sports media world, certainly in New York, a lot of Syracuse people, Penn State people, a lot of the big school people. And, I got to represent Albany. So I do that. And no, it's a pleasure of coming on. You asked about the Giants offseason. It was surprising. It was actually surprising. I didn't think they would spend as much as they did. I know I've been around long enough to know just because it says, they have this much cap space. Well, that's kind of, when you tell your wife, we only have this much to spend on the furniture, and all of a sudden you're getting pieces you never thought you could afford. Like, how did we afford that? It's like, we figured it out. You can always figure things out with the salary cap. And so, but I would have been, I would be a liar to say that I thought they would get one of the top linebackers. One of the top cornerbacks on the market, the top receiver on the market. So, they were more aggressive and spent more money than I thought they would have been. And because of that, they're a better team.
Yeah. Daniel Jones, obviously when Dave Gettleman drafted him a couple of years ago, it was a huge shock to a lot of fans. He's shown some flashes of maybe being the franchise quarterback. What do you think? Well, how do you think he's going to do in year 3 under center?
Well, that's the question. At this time next year, if you have me on again or before that, but if you would have me on, we would know either Daniel Jones is their quarterback and things look good, or they've replaced him already. This is year 3. It's critical. The rookie year, he took over pretty early for Eli Manning, but he still had that aura of Eli Manning in the building, right? It was still Eli Manning's team. Daniel Jones, the rookie, kind of took over as the caretaker. Last year, it was his team. He got hurt a little bit. The team was not good. First year coach, first year offensive coordinator, Jason Garrett. That is always a very big adjustment for a young quarterback. So this is year 2 of this system. They've fortified. They have Kenny Golladay. They have Kadarius Toney, the first-round pick. They have Kyle Rudolph, a new tight end. They have more players now. If the offensive line holds up, this is the year for Daniel Jones. Yes. And you mentioned he showed flashes. I would agree, but I would agree that's all he showed. Flashes, some good things, good arm, athletic. He can run. He's fast. We went 16 years with Eli Manning, not athletic, not fast. So, it was a difference, but he needs to, number one, prove he can stay healthy. He has not stayed healthy in his 2 years as a starter. And he needs to just be more aware in the pocket, take less sacks, hold on to the ball more. And until those answers, those questions are answered for me, I can't sign off as him being the franchise quarterback. It's just not there yet. Flashes are one thing, but he has to put up, this is the year to do it. There's no doubt about it.
Robert, why don't you go ahead and ask the next question?
Yeah, Paul, with the, you mentioned Kadarius Toney and obviously the addition of Kenny Galladay. It seems like the Giants are sending the message to Daniel Jones that, look, here are the tools. Either do something with them, or we'll go in a different direction.
Well, a lot of the fans, believe it or not, we always think the fans want the flash, but a lot of Giant fans who were so sick of seeing their offensive line being very poor were hoping that, yes, what you said, we're giving you all these offensive weapons. Yes, but a lot of the fans really wanted more offensive linemen. They wouldn't have minded if they took Rashawn Slater in the first round from Northwestern. He was available at number 11, and the Giants actually then traded down to 20. They passed up on him. They did not take an offensive lineman in the entire draft. They only had 6 picks. They did not take one. They feel now, don't forget, they drafted 3 offensive linemen last year: first round, third round, fifth round. So those guys all play a role. They think all 3 will probably start this year. So it's not like they've turned their back on the offensive line. They just did it last year, and now they're going to push it forward this year. But you're right. The Giants' number one goal this offseason, more than anything else, was to upgrade the weaponry and the talent around Daniel Jones. They've certainly done that at receiver. And, oh, by the way, they have a running back named Saquon Barkley who only played 2 games last year. So he's basically like a new player in this Jason Garrett offense. He got hurt in the second game in Chicago last year, so he's back. If he's back to 95% initially, he's a new dynamic weapon for them. So yeah, they should have enough. They should have enough if Daniel Jones can be protected and he can do the job. There's a lot of firepower on this team. There really is right now.
How do you think
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, just want to ask a follow-up, Chris. How do you think the Giants are positioned this year in the NFC East? Obviously, the Cowboys getting Dak back. You have Washington that seems to be on the rise. They're really building up and stocking up some, a solid roster there. And then, of course, who knows what with the Eagles, but they're a bit of a mess. But how do you think the Giants are positioned in this division? With the pieces that they've added, and obviously how the other teams are faring so far.
It's interesting. I think if you have representatives, people who cover all 4 of those teams, each one of them might say the same thing. Well, I think they can win it, but I'm not making them the favorite. Because there's just not a lot of great quality. I think the Cowboys with Dak Prescott are the favorite. That's I tend to overvalue the Cowboys' talent. Last year they lost their quarterback, and so they had that was a disaster. Their defense has to prove that they can be a capable defense. They were anything but last year. They went hard for defense in the draft, really hard. Micah Parsons in the first round. They really wanted to upgrade their defense. They probably did. If Dak comes back, that was a tough injury he had. The one against the Giants. That was a tough. That compound fracture was a tough injury. So if he comes back and is mobile, I think they're the favorite. No, I think the Giants are, it's funny. I keep on thinking, 10 wins, 9 wins. And I always have to remember it's 17 game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's going to be weird. The numbers, isn't it going to be weird? We grew up with these numbers. Now you can be 9-8. 9-8 is just it looks weird, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah.
9-7, our eyes think 9-7, 10-6. 6-10, we know all this. Good teams are 13-3. Now they're going to be 13-4. It's just weird. So when I say, well, I think the Giants can win 9-10 games, well, 9 is 9-8. That's not going to win the division, I don't think. With the NFC East, all bets are off with how many games they're going to win. Look, the Giants were playing for a chance to win the division last year, and they finished 6-10. At 5-11 last year, the Giants had a chance to win a game and win the division. So, that's not going to happen again, I don't think. I think the Giants can be a contender. I think they can be a playoff team, but their offense is dependent on Daniel Jones and the offensive line. The defense is good, but they don't have a lot of playmakers up front. So, they still kind of a scheme-based defense. But I do think year number 2 with Joe Judge will be better because they will be much more acclimated. It's his team now. He did a pretty good job in year 1 with all this pandemic stuff. This was hellacious for any coach, first-year coach even more so. I think they have a chance. They're a better team.
Yeah, Paul, I was going to ask you about that is with Coach Judge. Second year when he was hired, nobody really knew who he was. It was a surprise hire. But like you said, he did a solid job his first year. And what do you think, again, now that COVID is starting to move into the rearview mirror, the players are starting to know the system and know the coach and everything. Do you think the second year they, like we talked about a little earlier, they could be a surprise that his system is going to take hold more and the team is going to play better because they're more familiar with him?
Yeah, I mean, Joe Judge was not shy about making this his team. You know, I mean, he is a rigid guy. You're a Dolphin fan. Brian Flores. It's from that Belichick tree. Brian Flores was not a guy who everyone said, "Oh yeah, he's going to be the next head coach." You know what I mean? These guys, come out of the Belichick school, and the first iteration of the Belichick tree was not great, but this next generation of them has a chance to be really good. And it's interesting because, Joe Judge was a special teams coordinator, and you think, John Harbaugh, we know he's done really well as a special teams, background, but it makes sense. You know what I don't like? I don't like seeing these head coaches, these offensive gurus, and this is what you see during the game, right?
Yeah.
Right? This is what you see. They're just looking over the play sheet, and I'm thinking to myself, that's the field out there. Coach the game, manage the game. All they're doing is looking at their next thing, 3rd and 10, 6, and so a special teams coordinator deals with more players than anyone on the team but the head coach, right? He has his head in the game, the whole game. He has to deal with linemen and defensive backs and cornerbacks and receivers and running backs. They're all in his meetings. So I think this could be a trend. I like it. Joe Judge does not call the defensive signals. He does not call the offensive signals. He has 2 or 3 guys as special teams coaches, so he manages the game. And I think the Giants were very good last year at game management, organized, not panicking, not sending field goal teams in the last minute, having a sense of when to call timeout, when to do the challenges. And that's important. It was really comical almost last year at his first training camp. Remember, you guys heard you all started hearing Joe Judge is doing live tackling drills, and he's doing this, and he's going to burn these players out. And the penalty laps, remember that? He was doing punishment laps.
Yeah.
Guys would false start or do something wrong, and all of a sudden they do a penalty lap. And all these people I heard around the league saying, he's not a high school. This is not high school, buddy. The NFL guys are not going to accept this. And I was there watching those penalty laps. I could have done those penalty laps backwards faster than some of those guys did them. They were jogging around. It was not a big deal. And I'm thinking to myself, what are we talking about? You guys are, the people on the outside were wrong. The players did not resent it. And, he kind of calmed down with that. And it just was a message. If you make a mistake in practice, there are repercussions. Just like in a game, when you false start or you go offside, it's a 5-yard penalty. It hurts the team. So we're going to, inflict a little pain on you, very little, I might add, with a slow jog around the field to show mistakes have ramifications. So he's good. Yeah, I mean, I think he's solid. It'll be very interesting to see what jump he takes in year 2.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's funny you mentioned that, Paul, because Brian Flores, his first year with the Dolphins, I mean, all the talk about tanking and everything, and he had some type of wall or something that said, it takes no talent. And anytime a player screwed up, like you just said, they had to go run to the wall and back and everything. And I can't help but think of Don Shula. I mean, Don Shula was notorious for running his teams hard in training camp, but yet, at the end of the season, they were always well conditioned and, of course, highly disciplined, because usually they were the least penalized teams in the NFL.
You're right. And you know what? Joe Judge, it's not like he ran a vicious training camp. I go back a long ways. 2-a-days in the hot sun, 8:30 to 10:30, 3 to 5, 2-a-days, full pads in the afternoon, live goal line. There was a couple of tackling drills and things like that, but he is very new age with this stuff, rest and getting his players off their feet and things like that. So he is not a tyrant when it comes to that stuff, and this whole Bill Belichick, he's going to wear these players down. I didn't see it with him. Not at all.
I was going to say, go ahead, Robert. You got the next one.
Okay. Paul, with Azeez Ojulari, how do you think he fits in with that defense, and what kind of impact do you think he'll have coming out? Because I know as a Bills fan, one of the things that was talked about with Buffalo is that, they were going to get an edge rusher, and Ojulari was actually there at 30 for the Bills. They pass on him, of course. The Giants get him in the second round. What kind of impact do you think he'll have in his rookie season?
Well, it'll be interesting if you can find out, the only issue with Ojulari was his knee. There were some teams that didn't like, he had, look, now this is, maybe paralysis by analysis here. He had an ACL his senior year of high school. Okay. He ended up playing as a true freshman at Georgia. He did not miss any time at Georgia, but there was some concern that he had an arthritic condition in his knee. He was checked out by top doctors. The Giants had no issue with it. Now, it's interesting because the Giants really needed an edge rusher. And at 42, Ojulari was on the board and they traded down. Remember, they traded down from 42 to 50. And I thought, wow, Ojulari is on the board here. I talked to people in the pre-draft, lead in, and they thought some people thought he was the best pass rusher in this draft. He's a classic 4-3 outside linebacker, 6'3", 240, not one of these skinny guys, a barrel chested guy. He had a great year for Georgia last year, 8.5 sacks, a lot of tackles for loss. I mean, he's a classic outside linebacker, and he can rush the passer. And so I was surprised that they traded down from 42, but there was a cluster of 3 or 4 guys that the Giants I think there were 5 guys, the Giants said. They traded down 8 picks. They said, we had 5 guys in a cluster that we would be happy getting at 50. And they said, all 5 are not going to be gone because we know the needs of these other teams. Ojulari was one of the guys there. People feel he was a steal. I think he fits in right away. I mean, at the absolute minimum, he fits in as a third down situational pass rusher. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a starting outside linebacker very early in his tenure. They have a couple of guys coming back, outside linebackers, Lorenzo Carter, who missed almost the whole season, tore his Achilles, and O'Shane Zimenez, who had a bad shoulder and missed most of last season. Those are 2 edge rushers coming back. With those guys returned to health with Ojulari, I think they have some interesting young pass rush options, but he definitely figures in immediately.
Paul, you briefly touched upon it earlier, but as we all said, there's going to be a 17th game this season. And I'm kind of curious, how do you think that addition of another game is going to affect, how the Giants, not just the Giants, but, NFL teams in general are going to handle player, load management? I mean, we're going to see maybe some starters come out of some games earlier than usual if the game is a rout or something, but how do you think that 17th game is going to impact teams going forward into the season?
I heard LeBron James has already said he's not playing in 10 of the games. Okay. He's not playing. Load management. I don't think it's going to have a great effect. You know what I mean? I mean, there's only 3 preseason games. So, I mean, you're going to see these starters playing very sparingly in the preseason. Look, once the season starts, there's only one bye, right? So that these coaches are maniacs. They're not going to be thinking in week 7, I better sit some of these guys a little bit because, we have a 17th game. They're going to put, pedal to the metal. Look, eventually it's going to be 18 games and 2 preseason games. Yeah. Eventually that's what it's going to be. 17 is the speed bump to 18. They just lost a whole year of revenue. These games are golden. The more they add, the more money they make. The preseason games, everybody hates. The coaches feel they need them. The fans hate them. They hate paying money for them. Media doesn't like them. So, 2 preseason and 18 regular season, that's coming. So with 18, do you have to give a second bye? Maybe. A lot of people think that, there's going to be a President's Day Super Bowl every year, and it's going to be Monday off. We're going to push the season back even further into February, and it's going to be like a national holiday. Super Bowl on President's Day. Everyone has Monday off. You don't have to pretend you're sick and not come in, call in sick. You can actually not go in. So I look, it's going to be brutal for players. As we saw last year, I thought the expanded practice squads last year worked. They need expanded rosters, expanded practice squads. You need to have more flexibility with these players and be able to have players on short-term IR, bring them back. It's a marathon, but as far as the coaches, they're going to try to win every game.
Yeah, and I know that, we've got labor peace in the NFL for a few more years, but do you think that if the NFL does want to go to an 18-game regular season schedule, that the Players Association is going to say, okay, if you want that, then you're going to have to give us expanded rosters, an expanded practice squad, and maybe a little more guaranteed money to make that happen? Because obviously, as you know better than I do, the shelf life of these guys, I mean, the average NFL career is between 3 and 4 years. some of these guys are going to be looking to make as much as they can in that short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think you're right. I mean, the guaranteed money, I'm not so sure. I mean, owners hate the notion of giving more guaranteed money, but expanded rosters, you add 2 or 3 guys, that's bottom tier guys at the roster, making league minimum. I mean, every game that these teams play, every extra game is billions of dollars. I mean, the TV contracts for 16, now 17, then 18 are just off the charts. I mean, every week, don't you see NBC says their Sunday night game, broke the record. The Fox game broke the record. The Monday Night Football game was the highest rated game. I mean, there is no ceiling right now to the ratings. And as long as there's no ceiling to the ratings, then there will be an 18th game, and the owners will give some concessions. And what it's going to do is hurt the little guy and hurt the middle class guy and help the big guys. Probably that's what happens in this league mostly. But the minimum wage guys, the minimum NFL salary guys will get bumped up a little bit. That's fine. But the owners will gladly give a couple of roster spots extra to have an extra game. Extra games are gold.
Robert, you got anything else?
Yeah, Paul, I did want to ask about certainly the situation with Daniel Jones that we talked about earlier. There's been a lot of turmoil involving other quarterbacks around the league. Certainly Aaron Rodgers comes up. It seems like Russell Wilson's fine for now, but there's been these different scenarios. Do you see the Giants getting in on any of these if something were to come up that maybe a trade or maybe waiting until free agency or something, just given the situation with Jones?
No, not now. I mean, after the season, I think they're going to be jumping with both feet if the season doesn't go well. No, look, there were guys out there, right? Matt Stafford was available. Carson Wentz was available. I'm not saying these are unbelievably great options, but is Aaron Rodgers really available? I don't know. I don't think he is, but Dave Gettleman, the Giants general manager, was asked about him, and he said, it's none of my business. He said, look, Daniel Jones is our quarterback. Look, as you said, Chris, you mentioned that it was a big shock that they drafted Daniel Jones. It wasn't a big shock they drafted him. It was a big shock they drafted him number 6. Don't forget, they had 6 and they had 17. I was very confident they were going to draft a quarterback. And so, it was not a great draft of quarterbacks. Some people wanted Dwayne Haskins. Thank goodness they didn't draft him. The Giants were not in on Dwayne Haskins at all. I was actually at Dwayne Haskins' pro day at Ohio State. That was Pat Shurmur's first year as head coach. And I went down there. The New York Post sent me down there, and I talked to Pat Shurmur, and I watched his workout. The workout was fine, but I did not get the sense that they were high on Dwayne Haskins then, and they weren't. So, I'm looking at this and thinking, well, at 17, I think they're going to pull the trigger on a quarterback. I could see Daniel Jones. I know they liked him. I knew they thought he was like an Eli Manning clone, but not at 6. So at 6, now that's a lot of draft capital at 6 to get Daniel Jones. So you're right. That surprised me. And so, but they're in on him. Look, this general manager drafted him. This coach did not, but the general manager did. And Dave Gettleman will sink or swim with Daniel Jones. I mean, after the 2021 season, if Daniel Jones has a good year and the Giants are a pretty good team, Dave Gettleman will get to stay. If Daniel Jones is no good, or it's clear, look, they have to upgrade, then they're going to probably have a bad season. Don't forget they have the Bears first-round draft pick, so they want the Bears to lose as many games as possible. So here's the deal. If the Giants are in a position that they need a quarterback next year, obviously that means they had a bad record, right? A lot of people think the Bears, if they're going with a rookie, Justin Fields at quarterback, they might have a bad season. So between those 2 first-round picks, maybe you have 2 in the top 10, maybe you have 1 in 5, maybe you have 1 at 12, whatever. Now you have 2 picks. Now you can bundle them. Now you have the arsenal. You have the capital to trade up. We'll see what free agency brings, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. They really wanted to work with Daniel Jones. Look, when you go through this cycle again, look at the Jets. When you go through this cycle, it's like rehabilitating, redoing your whole house. It's hard to live without a kitchen, right? It's hard to live without a den. I mean, it's hard to go through this quarterback stuff every 2-3 years. It kills a team. You have to put so much capital, so much draft equity into these quarterbacks, and it just sets you back. And then you change coaches, then you get rid of the GM, you start the cycle over again. Then you have to wait 2 or 3 years. So the Giants really wanted to work out with Daniel Jones. He's big, he's strong, he's tough, he works really hard. That's great, but I don't know if he's good enough. I just don't know flat out if he's good enough, and that's what we're going to find out this year.
Paul, my last question is about Giants ownership, the Tisches and the Maras. I mean, they seem like they've been getting along very, very well. I know once in a while you hear about a little dispute or something. And of course, like any marriage, you're going to have disputes from time to time. But what are your thoughts about ownership of the Giants, that you think one side might want to buy the other out? I mean, that's obviously going to be a lot of money. Do you think someone else might make an offer for the team down the road? Or what do you think right now the current ownership situation for the Giants is?
Well, it's 50-50. I mean, right down the middle, 50-50. Now, the Tisch family is they're not silent owners, but they don't run the team on a day-to-day basis. I mean, John Mara runs the New York Football Giants. He has an office in the building. Steve Tisch can show up. He was there for the rookie minicamp. He lives in LA. He has a private jet. He flies in. I'll tell you one thing: the Mara family is not buying out the Tisch family. You know what I mean? That's like one of that Godfather, Godfather Part 2, when they say something about no. You don't buy out us, we buy out you. You know what I mean? That's the line. I mean, the Tisch family and the Mara family's finances are very different. I have no reason to believe the Tisch family wants to own 100% of the Giants, at all. I think this works. Now as the generations go in the Mara family, we'll see. Once John is passes the reins to somebody, there's not maybe a natural successor to him. They have some people in the building who could take that role who are related to the Mara family. So, but the Mara family's business is the Giants. The Tisch empire is the Giants are a part of that. In 1990, after the Super Bowl, do you remember what they spent for the Giants? The Tisch family bought in, $75 million. That was half of what the franchise was valued at. It was $150 million valuation. They spent $75 million. That's quite a return on the investment, right? Yeah. In what, 31 years? That's quite a return. So, the Tisch family they make a nice amount of money on the Giants. They make a nice amount of money on a lot of things, but I think for now it's a good partnership. In 20 years from now, as these families kind of evolve, we'll see.
Yeah. Paul, I got to say the Godfather quote, I mean, that's great, because one of the things I enjoy about following you on Twitter is, besides the Giants, obviously, is that you do a lot of television and movie retweets and things and quotes and stuff. And you're a fun follow on Twitter. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you're the only person I know who tweets about MASH once in a while. I always like seeing those, or
it's a little, I've been accused of being a little dated. You know what I mean? A little dated. Now, MASH, Odd Couple, the Godfather, a little dated. Star Trek. I'm a big Marvel, MCU guy, but I'm a little current. I mean, I did a lot of tweeting about Schitt's Creek. Yeah. I watched that. I love that. That was our pandemic go-to show. So, I have 2 young kids, so pretty young kids in their 20s. So, they keep me as relevant as possible. And I try to be I'm like the doctor, the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. I just try to do no harm on Twitter. I don't want to get too involved because it can be a real cesspool. But, if you like to follow because it's fun, that's fine. But, things get too hot and heavy, I bail out. I kind of, sometimes I kind of am ready, and I'm like, no, I'm not sending that. I'm not sending that sucker. No way.
I was going to throw out the White Shadow and St. Elsewhere too.
Yeah.
Those MTM shows of the 70s and 80s. So
great. Yeah.
Robert, do you have anything else for Paul?
Paul, I had to end on this one because I know it's something that comes up a lot. Eli Manning's Hall of Fame prospects. Certainly there's, I know I've seen cases, either way as to why he should get in or shouldn't get into Canton. What's your take on it?
My take is it's going to be a really hot debate in 4 years, really hot debate. I know most of the guys who vote for it. No, it's a very small group, only about 50 writers and broadcasters, media members. There's a lot of New York bias, a lot of anti-New York bias. I know that for a fact. People that think that players who played in New York get too much hype. And if they played in Cincinnati or Tennessee or Cleveland, I know one person said to me once, You guys want to put everybody on at 86 and 90 Giants in the Hall of Fame. You know, you want to put them all in. You know, Harry Carson took forever to get into the Hall of Fame. You know, I think he was a Hall of Fame linebacker. And people said, you already got Lawrence Taylor. What do you need Harry Carson? Well, I don't think that's the way it's supposed to work. But I think it is a healthy debate for Eli Manning. I do. Because he was never an MVP candidate during the regular season. He was never, I would say, he was probably never a top 5 quarterback in any single year. You know, statistically, you know, he was never the all-pro quarterback. He made a few pro bowls. That's fine. What separates Eli is number one, 2 Super Bowl rings. And one of the games was one of the most iconic games in Super Bowl and NFL history, beating the undefeated Patriots after the 2007 season. That game goes down. You know, you can't write the history of the NFL without that game. Okay, so he has beaten Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl. I know he had a good defense. I know all those things. If we give too much on quarterbacks, that's fine. But that's the breaks, right? Quarterbacks win Super Bowls or lose them. Eli's 2-0 in the Super Bowl. He is 8-1 in those playoff runs. He was great in those playoff runs. The Giants were not a great team. He kind of dragged them across the finish line. So that puts him in the Hall of Fame in my mind. His durability is excellent. His class is excellent. His regular season stats are not Hall of Fame worthy. I believe that, but I think you have to take the totality of the guy, and everyone remembers Eli as winning 2 Super Bowls, and that I think gets him in. But I don't think it's a no-brainer. People who say he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and if you don't say yes, you're an idiot. I don't think that's true. I think it needs to be debated, but I think the postseason stuff, you know, puts him over the top.
Paul, we want to thank you again for joining us. You know, if you don't know who Paul is, if you don't read the New York Post online, you should definitely check him out. And of course, you can get the New York Post up here in Auburn. Believe it or not, they actually still circulate it up here.
Beautiful.
You can still get it in Auburn. So you can read his work on the New York Post in print or on NewYorkPost.com. Paul, again, thanks for joining us. Go Great Danes, of course.
Of course.
And
one other thing, if I can mention my podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
The Blue Rush podcast. I co-hosted with Lawrence Tynes, who is a 2-time Super Bowl winning kicker. He's great. He's funny. He knows football. He knows, you know, he's got great links to the past 2 Giants Super Bowls. You know, it's twice a week during the season. We're on a little bit of a hiatus now, of course. We're not in season, but anywhere you get your podcasts, as they say, Apple, Spotify, you know, local bodega. I guess they don't sell podcasts at the bodega, right? But, you know, it's a fun listen. I really do. Not just because I'm on it, but, you know, Lawrence Tynes is really good. We have a good chemistry. So, you know, any of you are Giant fans, listeners here, viewers, Blue Rush podcast, New York Post.
Definitely, Paul. And maybe we'll have another Albany Student Press reunion. We get Bob Bellafiore, Steve Greenberg. Robert's familiar with those guys because he covers politics for our newspaper. So I always like to rub it in that the real political guys are all SUNY Albany grads. So, but you know, so again, thanks for joining us, and maybe we'll have you on maybe before the season starts. If not, we'll definitely do another off-season video with you. All right.
Sure. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Paul. Take care.